Welcome to my clauses course. Why is this a course? Well, this is going to be a mega lesson. I've divided this lesson into 3 parts. We're going to look at adjective clauses, noun clauses, and adverb clauses. After each part, there's a test. And at the very end of this lesson, I have another test for you so you can really see how well you know the different clauses. Are you ready? Well, my name's Arnell. Let's get started. Part 1, adjective clauses. Relative pronouns. Who, which, that, whose, and whom. And we're also going to look at relative clauses. Relative clauses are also called adjective clauses. Same thing. Let's start with an overview. I have 3 sentences. Each sentence has a relative pronoun. Who, which, that. What about whose and whom? Don't worry, we'll get to that later. The relative pronoun is the head of the relative clause. Each relative clause has a subject and a verb. You can see in my first example, the relative pronoun is the subject. More on that later. The relative clause always goes after the noun it is describing. Man, cake, email. Keep these basic points in mind because you'll see this repeated again and again in today's lesson. How do I know when to use who, which, that, or whose? I think we need a chart. What relative pronoun do I need? That is always less formal and more common in spoken English, which is slightly more formal. I had a friend who could speak 6 languages. I had a friend that could speak 6 languages. I bought a blanket which glows in the dark. I bought a blanket that glows in the dark. I spoke to a friend whose uncle is a lawyer. Possessive can be a bit confusing, but think about it like this. I spoke to a friend. His uncle is a lawyer. Same thing. We can also use whose for things, not just people. It was a beautiful hotel, whose lobby looked like a palace. It was a beautiful hotel. Its lobby looked like a palace. Same thing. My neighbor has a dog who constantly barks. So annoying. Yes, sometimes for pets we do use which or that. Giant pandas, which are endangered, can spend 10 hours a day eating. Animals that have hair or fur are called mammals. We need to take a look at adjectives just for a sec. 2 sentences. The big car is mine. I have my adjective big. It helps describe the car. These beautiful flowers are for my mom. Beautiful is my adjective. It describes flowers. Which adjective is necessary? The first one, right? If I remove big, the sentence is grammatically correct, but you don't know which car I'm talking about. It's necessary. It helps identify the car. Beautiful is optional. If I remove it, there is no confusion. Necessary information, optional, not necessary information. Necessary, not necessary. In English, relative clauses that provide necessary information are called defining relative clauses. They help to identify the noun. Relative clauses that give extra or interesting information are called non-defining relative clauses. In your grammar books, these clauses might be called restrictive or non-restrictive. Same thing. We normally need defining relative clauses because there is more than one thing. Let's compare. The printer that, or which, is next to the door can only print in black and white. The printer, which is ancient and needs to be thrown away, can only print in black and white. I need the names of all the people who were here last night. I didn't speak to Ed, who was working in a different room. So what makes a clause defining or non-defining? Look at the first sentence. There are two printers. If I remove the relative clause, you don't know which printer I'm talking about. Imagine a conversation with a person who always removed the defining relative clause. The email had a mistake in it. Which email? Was this from yesterday? Food is bad for you. No, food is important. It's important for our... I hate people. Everybody? Okay, you can see the sentences here. Obviously, something is missing. The email that or which you sent me last night had a mistake in it. Now it's clear. Food that or which is high in sodium is bad for you. Oh, now I get it. I hate people who walk super slowly and take up the whole sidewalk. Excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Okay, so it's clear we need our defining relative clauses. Let's go back to comparing. If I remove my non-defining relative clause, it doesn't matter. You still know which printer I'm referring to. Here, I'm just giving you extra information. Do you notice any other differences between defining and non-defining relative clauses? Commas. We always need commas to separate our non-defining relative clauses. Think of the commas like handles, so you can easily remove the clause if you want. You can also see I haven't used that after my comma. Rule: do not use that in a non-defining relative clause. It doesn't matter if you're speaking about a person or a thing, do not use that after a comma. But this whole comma rule is only important in written English, right? In spoken English, there are no commas. Yes, in spoken English, there are no commas, but if we give non-essential information, we would still use which. Or when we're speaking, sometimes we add a little pause. That pause is kind of like our comma. My boss decided to end the workday early because of the blizzard, which I thought was a good idea. My teacher gave us a lot of homework for the weekend, which was unfair. I have my relative pronoun, the relative clause, and the comma. Fantastic. The blizzard was a good idea? The weekend was unfair? We can use which in a non-defining relative clause to refer back to the entire sentence or the entire situation. My boss allowing people to leave work early so they can drive home safely. That was a good idea, not the blizzard. My teacher giving us a lot of homework on a Friday. I mean, that whole idea was unfair. Wow, there's already been a lot of information. I think we need a mini review. We use who or that for people, which or that for things, who's possessive for people, but sometimes things as well. When it comes to animals, normally we use which or that, but we often use who for pets because it's a little bit more personal, right? And your relative clause always goes directly after the noun it is describing. Okay, defining relative clauses give us necessary information. They help identify the noun. Non-defining relative clauses give us extra, interesting information. We need commas to separate our non-defining relative clause. Do not use that in a non-defining relative clause. And we can use which in a non-defining relative clause to refer back to the entire idea before it. Let's keep going. Okay, the good news is we can forget about non-defining relative clauses. We need to focus on the defining clauses. I have two sentences here. Are the relative pronouns the subject or the object of the clause? In my first example, it's the object. How do I know that? Because look at the verb in the clause, brought. You brought what? You brought the amazing dish. It's the object. In my second example, it's the subject of the clause. My verb is have. The lines have an X on them. Why is this important? Subject, object. Because we can remove the relative pronoun if it's the object of the relative clause. We can't remove the subject. It's too important. So in sentence 1, people are still talking about the amazing dish you brought to my party. That's perfectly correct. Please sign the lines. Have an X on them? Very unnatural. Your turn. I have 3 sentences here. Which relative pronoun can I remove? Pause the video if you need to. We can remove the second one. It's the object of the clause. Where is the hat I bought you is perfectly correct. In the first sentence, it's the subject. And for sentence number 3, you might be thinking, relative pronoun, subject, verb. Fantastic, I can remove it. We never remove whose, because whose hair is the subject of the clause. Her hair. Let's do another one. Which relative pronoun can I remove? I can remove the second one because it's the object of the clause. Who or whom? I know who or whom is a big topic, but when it comes to relative clauses and relative pronouns, it's pretty simple. Who is the subject form? Whom is the object form? I think we need a few more examples. Let's take a look. Jared was a prisoner who always broke the rules. Jared was a prisoner whom everyone feared. This is my grandma who makes the world's best cheesecake. This is my grandma whom you spoke to earlier. Who is the subject of the clause because it's clearly the subject of the verbs broke and makes. Jared broke the rules. My grandma makes the cakes. Whom is the object of the verbs feared and spoke? Everyone feared Jared. You spoke to my grandma earlier. We can remove the first whom, but we can't remove the second. Why? Because it's part of a non-defining relative clause. Keep an eye out for those commas. I have to say whom is slowly disappearing from the English language. No! In spoken English especially, it's not very common to hear whom. You might see in written English, which is great, but generally when people are speaking, they either say who or that. Are you ready for a test? Okay, can you complete each space with a relative pronoun? Yes, there can be more than one answer possible, and look out for those commas. Ta-da! Okay, you can see in answer number 6, I have who in parentheses. Technically, whom is the correct answer, but most native speakers would actually just use who. Now, which one of these relative pronouns can you remove? There's only one. We can remove that in number 5, that or which, because it's the object of my clause. I can't remove the other pronouns. They're either the subject of the clause or they're part of a non-defining relative clause. So much information. But let's keep going. Let's move on to noun clauses. Step 1. What is a noun? I think a lot of you already know what a noun is, but I want to do a mini review so we're all on the same page. A noun can be a person, a place, or a thing. A person, mom, teachers, gym. A place, a restaurant, a country, the zoo. A thing, a pen, an animal, a tree. Nouns don't only need to be things you can touch or see. We can have abstract nouns, which are usually emotions or ideas. Trust, jealousy, intelligence, stupidity. I'm sure you can think of a lot of nouns off the top of your head.
Did you tell her about love, travel, moonlight, Italy, about hummingbirds in all the flowers?
I think you get the idea. Take a look at these 4 sentences. What nouns can you see? Pause the video to do this. Okay, here are my nouns, and you can see in sentence number 3, I have a pronoun. Nouns or pronouns. And you can also see nouns rarely stand alone. They're usually used with their modifiers, like discounted books or the principal. So in today's lesson, when I say noun, I mean noun or noun phrase, a noun with all of its modifiers. Step number 2, what are the functions of a noun? Nouns can be subjects, direct objects, indirect objects, the object of the preposition, and subject complements. If you're not sure about some of this terminology like indirect objects, subject complements, don't worry. You don't need to be a pro on these topics to understand today's lesson. But I do have a full-length video on these topics on my YouTube channel, which I'll leave down below for you. So why am I spending so much time telling you about nouns and the functions of nouns? Well, if you understand what nouns are, noun clauses are a piece of cake. Let's move on to step number 3. Okay, you can see I have 3 groups here with these pronouns and conjunctions. To form a noun clause, you need one of these words plus subject plus a verb. Let's start with group number 1. I have my WH words. Who, what, when, where, why, how, whose, which, whom. I know how is an exception, but I'm still going to put it in this group here. I have noun and noun clause. I'm going to put these next to each other so you can really see how a noun clause functions as a noun. I know. Know needs an object. I know the plan. We have a plan. I know the plan. I know what I need to do. What plus subject plus verb. You can see my noun clause is a dependent clause that functions as a noun. Everyone wanted to discuss the problem. Everyone wanted to discuss why they had to work on Sunday. Why? Plus subject plus verb. Again, my noun clause is functioning as the direct object. Noun. The departure time is unclear. When we need to leave is unclear. When plus subject plus verb. You can see my noun clause is now the subject of the sentence, just like a normal noun can be a subject. And remember, noun clauses are not questions. I'm not saying, when do we need to leave? No, I'm making a statement. When we need to leave is unclear. We need to think about money. We need to think about how we can raise money for our school. How plus subject plus a verb. Here, my noun clause is the object of the preposition about. You might be asking yourself, why do I need noun clauses? Why can't I just use a noun? Well, sometimes nouns are too simplistic. We need to think about money. That's kind of a simple idea. I can use my noun clause to express something a bit more. We need to think about how we can raise money for our school.
I don't understand this. I'm only paying half.
You can't do that.
Why not?
He's a doctor. You gotta pay what he says.
Oh, no. I pay what I say.
First things first, you gotta is very informal and short for you got to, which means you need to. You need to pay what he says. In this clip, you can see how useful a noun clause is. The noun clause can express a more complex direct object that a normal noun can't. Okay, we've looked at a lot of examples with one of these words plus subject plus verb. But sometimes your WH word is the subject. Jessica told me who sits here, but I forgot. Who? Where's the subject? Who is the subject? So remember, usually you'll see a subject and a verb after the WH word, but not always. If who is a subject of the clause, what can be the object of the clause? Whom. You can invite whom you like to the party. But to be honest, whom is rarely used nowadays, especially in spoken English. So many people do choose to use who for both the subject and the object. I just want you to be aware of that. Okay, here are all of the sentences we've looked at so far. If you're having trouble identifying a noun clause, you can do a little test. If you remove the noun clause and replace it with a normal noun or pronoun, your sentence will still make sense. Take a look. I've chosen kind of random nouns to fill in those spaces. And you can see all of these still make sense. Let's take a look at a little clip.
You can provide. Who you decide to focus on should be based on two things: the goal of your personal brand and the people who can best benefit from your unique talents and skills. So spend some time.
Okay, I have two clauses and they look very similar. Pause the video and think, which one is the noun clause? Only one is a noun clause. The first one is the noun clause. How do I know this? Well, let's do that little test. I can remove it and replace it with a normal noun. Your business should. And the sentence still makes sense. The second clause is not functioning as a noun. It's describing people. So we know the second clause is a relative clause. Group number 2. These words function the same way grammatically as group number 1. That makes them pretty simple. So what's the difference between who, whoever, what, whatever, where, wherever? When we add the suffix ever, we mean it doesn't matter. Specifics are not important.
Hey, George, you want this cup holder, you want it mounted on the left, or the right, or in the middle?
Whatever.
A cup holder is something that holds cups. I think that's kind of self-explanatory. And the verb mount means to attach something, usually to a wall or other hard surface. So in this show, the character's actually trying to make a place to sleep under his desk. So the man building this area asks, do you want this cup holder mounted on the left, the right, or the middle? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Specifics are not important. And don't worry, these words are not rude or impolite. It all depends on the context and the tone of your voice. Take a look at this little clip.
Oh, yes, that's great.
Well, I don't have my hearing aids in, so whatever he said is fine.
And here, whatever makes sense. This lady doesn't have her hearing aid in, so whatever he said is fine. It doesn't matter. It's fine. What time should we meet? Whenever you're available works for me. I'm using whenever because I don't care when. Any time works for me. And remember, again, noun clauses function as nouns. So it's not the same as saying, whenever I get in an elevator, I feel claustrophobic. Is that clause functioning as a noun? No. So keep that in mind. Don't let the vocabulary throw you off. Whoever draws the lucky number 7 will win $1,000. Send whomever you know this message. Everyone can participate in whichever activity they want. Wherever you choose to host the event must be within walking distance of the train station. Let's do that little noun clause test again. Here are the sentences we've looked at in group 2. We can remove our noun clauses and replace them with a normal noun, and they still make sense. Give it a try. What nouns can you think of that are appropriate in these sentences? Group number 3, last but not least. We have that, if, whether, plus subject, plus verb. These are similar to what we looked at earlier. See, I just use a noun clause as the object of the preposition. I heard that Alex has a gambling problem. Gambling is when you risk your money in a game. Like when people go to a casino, they gamble. So I heard that he has a gambling problem. This next example is from a book called The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith. That he could not afford a temporary secretary was perfectly obvious. That plus subject plus verb. Let's move on to if or whether. If and whether are used to choose between two options, usually yes or no. And you might be thinking,
that doesn't make sense.
Let's use a chart. You can see I have if and whether. What's the difference? If is slightly less formal, whether is slightly more formal, but they can be used in the same way. Please let me know if you need my help or not. You can see the two choices. Yes, you need my help, or no, you don't need my help. Or not is optional because if already implies the two choices. Please let me know whether you need my help or not. Yes, you do, or no, you don't. With whether, there's another option. Please let me know whether or not you need my help. That's also a possibility. I wonder if Max got the job or not. I wonder whether Max got the job or not. I wonder whether or not Max got the job. But I do need to mention that group 3 has its exceptions, like if cannot be used as the object of the preposition. Do you think Bailey will be here for the meeting? It depends on whether the trains are running on time. It depends on if the trains are running on time? No.
When I say that I'm not interested in content, it would be the same as a painter worrying about whether the apples that he's painting, whether they're sweet or sour. Who cares?
Lots of interesting stuff here. I have a noun clause here at the beginning. And then we have worrying about whether the apples that he's painting, whether they're sweet or sour. I cannot use if after my preposition about. And you might notice this mini clause here, that he's painting. Is this clause functioning as a noun? No, this clause is describing apples. So it's a relative clause. And let's confirm what we've done so far and do that little noun clause test. I can remove those noun clauses and replace them with normal nouns. What's up with wonder? Why did I not change wonder? Wonder is a really unique verb. But first things first, the pronunciation, wonder, like the number 1. Wonder, not wander. When we wonder, we are thinking about a question. So it makes sense that wonder is followed by a noun clause because noun clauses often start with question words. I wonder who? I wonder if. I wonder when.
I wonder how, I wonder why.
So with all grammar, it's important to keep in mind that we have exceptions. But if you only focus on the exceptions, you'll go crazy. Let's move on to the test. Test time. Are you ready? All the examples in my test come from the book Hideaway by Nora Roberts. Noun clauses are so common that I actually just had to quickly look through this book to find all of these examples. Okay, I have 7 pairs of sentences. All of the sentences are correct, but in each pair, there is only one noun clause. In each pair, choose the noun clause. Pause the video to do this. Okie dokie, here are the answers. Okay, in questions 2 and 5, the other sentences are relative adjective clauses. We looked at that earlier in this course. We are describing anybody and people. The other clauses are, what do we have left? Yep, adverb clauses. So much information again. But let's move on to adverb clauses. Let's do a mini review on adverbs. If you know what an adverb is, well, you're 50% there. Adverbs are words that can describe a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. My teacher speaks slowly. Slowly, the adverb describes a verb speaks. An adjective. Today, it's really cold. Really, my adverb describes my adjective cold. Another adverb. Let's go back to the first example. My teacher speaks quite slowly. Quite, my adverb, describes another adverb slowly. But sometimes one single adverb is not enough. We want more information. So we need an adverb clause. A clause is just a simple way of saying subject plus verb. That's a clause. I've divided this lesson into 4 simple parts. When, where, how, and why. Part 1, when, time. When it comes to the concept of time, we can think before, during, and after. During means at the same time. Let's visualize this. Yesterday I had a party from 6 to 10. This is during the party. Before is any time before 6. After is any time after 10. You can see we can use different words to describe before, during, and after. Yes, I know I have when in 2 different parts, but I'll explain the difference later. Let's start with before. I cleaned my house before the guests arrived. And guests are people you invite to your house. When did I clean my house? Before the guests arrived. Conjunction, subject, verb. I have an adverb clause. It tells me when. I want you to visualize this. The conjunction is like the thing that connects the 2 carriages. The engine is an independent clause. It can go anywhere it wants. It's independent. I clean my house is independent. It's a perfect sentence without any help. The other carriage represents the dependent clause. It's dependent because it depends on the engine. Before the guests arrived is not a complete sentence. Which clause is more powerful? The independent clause. The dependent clause is weaker, right? It's weaker. It's lower. It's subordinate. Subordinate means in a lower position. Like you can have a boss and you can have subordinates.
I have subordinates.
So in this clip, this man is happy that he has subordinates. Well, why am I teaching this word? Well, these words here are often called subordinating conjunctions. Why? Well, these conjunctions introduce the weaker dependent clause, right? My house was spotless by the time the guests arrived. Spotless is an adjective that means super clean. So clean it's sparkling. My house was spotless. Conjunction, subject, verb. I have my adverb clause. So what's the difference between before and by the time? Well, they're very similar, but before is very general. Anytime before. By the time is more specific, and it emphasizes that something is complete. I wash my hands before I eat. This is very general. I do this every day. I wash my hands before I eat. All of the children will have washed their hands by the time lunch is ready. Now I'm being more specific and I'm emphasizing, 25 kids in the classroom, all of their hands will have been washed. Conjunction, subject, verb. I have my adverb clause. Can the clauses be switched around? Of course. This is perfectly correct. But writing tip. If your adverb clause comes first, use a comma to separate the 2 clauses. If your independent clause comes first, you don't need a comma. Keep that in mind. So for the rest of this lesson, I'm just gonna switch the clauses around whenever I want. Until. We're still looking at before. I cleaned until the guests arrived. We have to wait until the client signed the contract. I don't want you to open that present until it's your birthday. You can see until means the action stops before something else. The cleaning stops. The waiting stops. The not opening the present stops. Think about until like a giant stop sign. Here's a common mistake. Imagine you're waiting for an important package to arrive. Can you help me? I haven't received the package until now. And this is typing. I'm typing. I haven't received the package until now. This is a little bit confusing because this means you have received the package. You haven't received it until now. So if you have the package, why do you need help? If you're still waiting, you need to say, I haven't received the package yet. Let's move on to during. 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 When you have a party, you need food, so I made pizza. As, while, when the pizza was baking, the kitchen smelled amazing. This means during the cooking process, the kitchen smelled amazing. As, while, when. Are they the same? These words can be used in lots of different ways in English. In today's lesson, they mean during this time. If these words mean during this time, yes, they are the same. Let's do another example. My gums started to bleed as I was brushing my teeth. My gums started to bleed while I was brushing my teeth. My gums started to bleed when I was brushing my teeth. Conjunction, subject, verb. I have my adverb clause, and we have the independent clause as well. Let's move on to after. After everybody left, I cleaned my house again. I try to have dinner with Sally whenever I can. When you get home, please call me. Here we see when meaning after. After you get home, please call me. So yes, when can also mean during, but don't worry, the context will make it clear. What's the difference between whenever and when? Well, whenever means anytime. The time, the date, the month is not important. When is more specific. Whenever I can, that's not specific. Maybe on a Monday, maybe on a Tuesday, whenever. When is more specific, this one moment. When you get home, call me. But sometimes these words can't be used interchangeably. For example, please send me pictures of your vacation. Whenever you get a chance. As soon as I wake up, I put on my glasses. Once I have a new address, I'll send it to you. As soon as and once, yeah, they mean after, but they're more specific. They mean immediately after. You know, my party finished at 10 o'clock. I ran to the bathroom as soon as everyone left. If my party finished at 10, I ran to the bathroom at 10 o'clock and 5 seconds. You know how it is. Now imagine a relay race. Once your teammate passes you the baton, you need to run. Not just after, immediately after. I want you to leave me your score in the comments below as soon as the lesson finishes. Mini review. I'm sure the concept of adverb clauses is becoming clearer to you, but let's do a quick review, and after this, I think it's plain sailing. I fell in love with painting after I had my first class. Adverb clauses have a conjunction, subordinating conjunction, subject plus verb. They are a dependent clause. They need an independent clause. They can't do anything without an independent clause. Remember, when you're writing, if your independent clause comes first, you don't need a comma to separate the two clauses. But if your adverb clause comes first, make sure you add a comma. Part 2. Where? Place. Adverb clauses can also tell us where. I'll meet you where we first met. I can meet you wherever you want. So what's the difference between where and wherever? Well, just like when and whenever, where is more specific. Where we first met is one place. The speaker and the listener both know where we first met. With wherever, the specific place is not important. I can meet you there, I can meet you there, wherever. You know how when you stare at the sun for too long, you get like a big bright white light? I can say, everywhere I look, I see a white light. We can eat anywhere you want. Here's a common question. What's the difference between everywhere and anywhere? Well, everywhere means all locations. There and there and there and there. All locations. Anywhere means the one location is not important. There's okay, or there's okay, or there's okay. Which sentence is more natural? Where do you want to go to eat for dinner? We can eat everywhere. We can eat anywhere. Well, the second one, because you're saying it doesn't matter which restaurant we go to. If you say we can eat everywhere, you kind of want to eat at every restaurant, which is possible, but not really realistic. Let's do another example. I looked for my keys everywhere. I looked for my keys anywhere. The first one is correct. This means you checked all locations. The second one doesn't even make sense. Okay, we're done with place. Let's move on to part 3. Part 3, how? Manner. Manner means how we do something. Like in the very first example of this lesson, my teacher speaks slowly. How does she speak? Slowly. That's what I mean by manner, how we do something. Okay, Bridget looked at me. Okay, we can see she looked at me, but I want to give you a bit more information. She looks a bit angry, right? Bridget looked at me like I had said something insulting, but I didn't. Insulting means, it's an adjective, it means rude or disrespectful. Bridget looked at me as if I had said something insulting. Bridget looked at me as though I had said something insulting. Conjunction, subject, verb, I have my adverb clause. What's the difference between like, as if, and as though? Well, they mean the same thing. It's just that like is really less formal and is usually used in spoken English. Why do we have so many ways to say the same thing? Well, it's all about variety. We need variety. Okay, Candace screamed like, as if, as though she was being murdered. I thought there was a problem, but no, it was just a spider. Like, as if, as though someone had used a magic wand. My headache disappeared. Mark is a fast eater. He eats like He eats as if, he eats as though he'll never see food again. Part 4. Why? Reason. As. Again. Yes, in English there are lots of ways to use as, but it can be used to give a reason. The tree's roots, and the roots are like the tree legs. The tree's roots had to be cut back because they were damaging the sidewalk. The tree's roots had to be cut back since they were damaging the sidewalk. The tree's roots had to be cut back as they were damaging the sidewalk. All of these adverb clauses give you the reason why. Are these three the same? Well, because is the most common. I'm sure you are comfortable using because. Since and as mean the exact same thing, but they can be considered a little bit more formal. Let's get a little bit specific. Yes, these three words can be used interchangeably, no problem. But many times, because often focuses on the reason, and as and since often focus on the result. What do I mean by that? Let's take a look. I have result and reason. Result is like the effect, and reason is why there is this effect. I had to call my landlord. What's the reason? Because my ceiling has a leak in it. So here because explains why I called my landlord. Now imagine there's a business meeting. Everybody knows that Bob is going to be 15 minutes late. Someone can say, let's start the meeting without Bob, as since he's going to be 15 minutes late. It's already clear to everyone that he's going to be late. So as and since focus a little bit more on the result. Let's start the meeting without him. Let's do another example. Can we please move our dinner reservation to 7? Why? Because a client booked a last-minute appointment with me. The reason is very important because the listener probably doesn't know why you want to change the reservation. Imagine it's a really cold day. A school principal can say, "Ooh, we need to grit these walkways." Grit is a noun and a verb. Grit, the noun, is what people put on their driveway, on the streets. You know, it's a mixture of little rocks, sand, maybe some salt. The verb to do this is also grit. Ah, yes, I remember now. We need to grit these walkways, as since children may slip and hurt themselves. You know, the reason is kind of obvious. People don't put grit down for fun. So I hope you can kind of get the nuance, the feeling between because and as and since. What about for? Yes, for can also be used to introduce why. However, in modern English, for is not really that common. It kind of sounds like a poem. My heart was broken, for I loved him. My heart was broken because I loved him. So it's good to know that for means this, but in your day-to-day conversations and even in your writing, I wouldn't suggest using for. I think it's time for a test. Some of you might be thinking, but I know there are other types of adverb clauses. The other types of adverb clauses are often not taught as adverb clauses. For example, showing contrast. I went for a walk even though it was raining. Even though gives me a contrast. Why would you go for a walk if it's raining? but I didn't care. I went for a walk even though it was raining. Even though it was raining is an adverb clause. Adverb clauses can also show condition. Whew, if I lie down, I'll fall asleep. If I lie down is my adverb clause. I'm showing a condition. But in today's lesson, I wanted to focus on when, where, how, and why. If you understand the concept of these, other adverb clauses become much easier. Let's do our test. Okay, it's test time. You can see I have 8 sentences and 8 conjunctions. Can you please put the conjunctions into the spaces? Just so you know, 2 of the conjunctions can go in 2 different spaces. Keep that in mind. Pause the video to do this. Okay, here are the answers. You can see with sentences 6 and 7, yes, like and as though can be used interchangeably, but like sounds better in sentence number 7 because sentence number 7 is really informal. Well, you just finished 3 parts. Well done. I know there's a lot of information in today's lesson. And you've also done 3 tests. Now let's put all your knowledge together. I want to know if you can recognize the different clauses. Here's my final test for you. 10 sentences. Look at the underlined clause and tell me, is it an adjective clause, a noun clause, or an adverb clause? Pause the video to do this. Here are the answers. How did you do? You know, I'd really love to hear from you. I want to know how you feel about clauses. Why don't you give me all 4 test scores in the comments below? It's good for me to see how people are doing. Thank you so much for watching this lesson. Well done, and I'll see you next time. Bye!